Tonight, amid a deepening standoff with Iran, there's confusion about what's happening with U.S. forces in Iraq. Joining us now, Democratic Representative Abigail Spanberger of Virginia. She's a key member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, as well as a former CIA case officer. Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining us. I quickly want to start with this very confusing letter saying U.S. troops are repositioning in Iraq to prepare for, quote, onward movement. It also says, quote, we respect your sovereign decision to order our departure. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs now says the letter was poorly worded and released publicly by mistake and released to the Iraqi government by mistake. What do you read between the lines?
Well, I think there's a lot to be viewed here, a lot of confusion, frankly. There's confusion within the American government. There's confusion about what this means. I think we can be certain that there's confusion within the Iraqi government as to what their partners, the United States, means by this letter. I think it speaks to a bit of chaos and freneticism. And forward-looking, I think we must be very concerned about what strategy exists to move our country forward, protect our national security interests, and ensure that our U.S. personnel overseas are operating on an order and on a strategic plan that will keep them safe and meet U.S. objectives.
Do you believe the strike on Soleimani has jeopardized the overall U.S. mission in Iraq?
Well, I think certainly when you see the Iraqi parliament assessing that U.S. soldiers should leave the country, when our mission on the ground has been to fight ISIS, fight a transnational terror organization meant to do harm to the West, to our country, and to Iraq itself, I think that it's hard to see that we're any better off. And I think looking forward into what the next steps are going to be, we have to ensure that we're strengthening the relationship that we have with the Iraqis. We have to ensure that the mission that has been the primary focus of thousands of soldiers, U.S. personnel in Iraq to fight ISIS, to keep our country safe, is one that isn't being jeopardized.
You dealt with Iran when you were a CIA case officer. Based on what you've heard from the administration, at least so far, how likely is it that this strike thwarted what the administration says, the president says, was an imminent attack from Soleimani?
So I was a CIA case officer. I worked Iranian issues. I worked counterterrorism issues. And, I think it's clear when we look at the 20 years that General Soleimani had leading, going up the ranks and leading the Quds Force, redefining what asymmetric warfare looks like for the Iranians, planning and in many cases executing attacks in the Middle East, in Africa, and South America, and planning attacks here even in the United States. It's clear that he was at the helm of this organization, the Quds Force, that meant to do harm constantly and consistently to America and its allies. I think the challenge, though, is I don't think anyone's under any illusion that he was the one who was going to be leading a militia to attack an American base, or that he would be the one driving a truck bomb. Those individuals are still out there. The person who might be committing an attack against U.S. forces or U.S. interests are still out there. And he spent years upon years building this infrastructure. So I think as we are looking to what our next steps are, we need to know that while removing him from the battlefield, removing him from as a threat is one potential step, the hundreds, if not thousands, of people he trained remain there, and that threat and that challenge is clear, and it's one that requires a firm, concise strategy for how to deal with the threat that comes from the Iranian regime.
Yeah, it certainly does. Representative Spanberger, thank you so much for joining us.